everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. This is going to be a fireside chat on what's next for sales operations. And a huge thank you to our speakers today. We have Nancy Nardin with Smart Selling Tools and Dharmesh Singh, the founder of Fullcast. And both will be going through a little bit of a Q&A and sharing their insights and expertise today. So I'm Catherine Holt, the community manager at Fullcast, and today I'll be monitoring our session. And hang on, my slides. There we go. We want this to be a really interactive session, so please drop your comments and questions in the chat or Q&A throughout the webinar, and we'll be sure to incorporate those into our discussion. And we'll be talking about trends and tools that are impacting sales operations, and I'm sure each of you have a lot of experience with this, so feel free to share your ideas with the group. So today's agenda, I'll introduce our speakers. Oh, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Dharmesh.
There was a question in the chat, which is, will the recording be sent out afterwards as well?
Oh, yes, it will be, for sure. Great, so today's agenda, I'll introduce our speakers, and then we'll move on to a series of questions on the state of sales operations. And again, feel free to ask questions, but we will be saving time at the end to cover any additional questions. Yeah, and to reiterate, tomorrow morning you'll get an email with a recording of the webinar, so feel free to watch this again and then share it with anyone that you think would find it valuable. So now I'll introduce our speakers, Nancy and Dharmesh. Nancy is the founder and CEO of Smart Selling Tools, a company dedicated to helping sales teams implement processes and technology to drive revenue. Nancy is a pioneer in sales prospecting technology. She's began her career as a service provider and is now an expert and industry leader on sales tools. And we've had Nancy as a featured speaker many times before, and we're always happy to have her with us. And Dharmesh is the CEO and co-founder of Fullcast. His expertise is in sales operations and building and selling enterprise solutions. His experience managing sales teams at both Salesforce and Microsoft moved him to found Fullcast, and today he'll be sharing more about his vision and point of view of sales ops. So we're really excited to have both of you today, and we'll start out with questions, and we'll just let the conversation flow from there.
Great. I will take over from here. Thank you for the introduction, Catherine. It's great to be here. I just want to say you mentioned that I've spoken before with alongside of Dharmesh, and I just wanted to bring that up because when we did the last session, it was in Silicon Valley, and it was an event that you held for sales ops people, and I think you did this all over the country. Those were really great events, and a chance to just meet up with other sales ops practitioners. So I really appreciated that, and I know a lot of others did as well. Do you have any more of those planned?
Yeah, we do, but we've taken a break for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And we will be restarting the series of meetups and the event. The event is going to be an annual event. That's how we look at it. So reinforcing for us, in person, right? So at least connect with everybody passionate about sales operations.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, you're really helping to contribute to creating a community for sales ops people. So I thank you for that. Catherine mentioned that we do want to have this be interactive. So if you have thoughts on what's next for sales ops, or you want to comment on or ask a question about where you see sales ops coming from or evolving to, feel free to put that in the question and answer queue, and we'll go ahead and make mention of that as we go. But let's start with this first question. I mean, this webinar is about what's next for sales ops, so maybe we should start with where has it come from? Because we have evolved already quite a bit, and we'll be evolving even more into the future. But Dharmesh, where do you think sales ops has come from, and where are we heading?
Yeah, so we look at sales operations as being on a transformative journey as such. It is as you think about sales operations, we've seen the journey move from the sales operations being viewed as a commodity to sales operations being viewed as a capability. And now some of the future-looking companies are actually looking at sales operation as something that gives them competitive advantage. And what I mean by each of those stages is as a commodity, right, this is where sales operations evolved from. It was, let's take away all the non-selling burdens that sales reps have, and turn it over to a bunch of people that are sitting in the back office that would lift the burden away from the sales force, so that salespeople will have more customer-facing time. They will do better data entry and relieve them of administrative burden. This, to me, is just viewing sales operation as a commodity. And what we've seen is this is where I would say companies that are still not there yet are operating as a commodity. And then there's especially in the SaaS world, what you've seen is a rising complexity of sales. And, you're not putting expensive salespeople on the ground. There are a lot more roles and role specialization. So because of the complexity of selling and the sales process itself, a lot more integration is required and stewardship of the sales process. And so you need more time between the back office systems, business partnerships between sales leaders and sales operations. And what's happened is sales has become a lot more sophisticated. It's also in these companies, as the company starts scaling, it's all about growth. So sales, the lens for sales as a cost center has shifted to sales as an investment. And what it means in sales operations are in a great spot, because if you're now thinking of sales as an investment and you need someone with differentiated skills and domain knowledge, over here you start establishing true business partnerships and relations between both sales and sales operations. And that's when sales leaders and companies have started seeing sales operations more as a capability, because they realize they need deeper functional expertise around systems and reporting and process and incentive compensations. And so sales operations moved from generalists, that is doing everything that we can do, to subject matter experts to complement the overall effectiveness. But where we see this going really is being sales operations being viewed as a competitive advantage, right? The more mature sales ops teams are undergoing this transformation, right? The advances in technology, the access to big data, and even greater complexity into the overall, right, sales organization, companies are becoming more account-based. So it is now becoming more of a strategic weapon that can allow companies to sort of use sales operation as kind of the fifth lever of growth beyond just marketing, sales, and customer success.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
Because I agree. I think sales ops is coming from a commodity role where kind of everything that no one else wants to do gets put on sales ops, along with all the other important things that they're supposed to do, right? Or the things that other people don't want to do. But as the industry and just the sales environment is changing, it's so important to look at it more strategically. Yet number 3 here on this slide talks about role specialization. So as sales ops is getting broader and broader, how do you see that specialization of role developing?
So we see specialization of roles. So as we see on the slide here, the role specialization is really focused on field-facing functions like inside sales, outbound sales, AEs, CSMs. But there is a complementary role specialization even in sales operations, right? Like earlier, when we first started, sales operation was this non-sexy place that anybody who was not good at sales, you would hide them in that place. Okay, you're not good at sales, you can't take quota, so I'll just put you in sales operations. Now that role is getting a lot more specialized. You need people that can understand data, that can understand business and strategic drivers of growth that the company cares about, because they realize sales is about, it starts at defining behaviors, right? So incentive compensation, that's where it starts from. Segmentation, coverage models, right? So it is now becoming a competency, not just about operationally doing whatever the company needs to do, but a strategic weapon where they have to think about sales strategy, they have to think about go-to-market strategy, how is the go-to-market strategy being executed against in the day-to-day motion of sales. So all those things are driving a lot, even role specialization within sales operations, right? So sales operations, and you see that specialization in the breadth of titles in sales operations, right? From an analyst to a manager to a sales strategy. And so there's role specialization even in sales operation, which is actually good sign that people are viewing this discipline as a strategic offering.
That makes sense. I see someone asked about to explain what point solutions proliferation means. I'll take that one at least first here and I'll be talking about this a little bit more later, but the point solutions I think is a reflection, or let me first describe what point solutions mean. It means there are a lot of technologies that are aimed at one piece of the puzzle. So that's what we mean by point solutions. There's 600 different technologies that I classify as a sales technology. And so I think, as you mentioned, Dharmesh, that the role of selling is becoming more and more specialized with inside sales, et cetera. Now we're popping up with all these different solutions to help each one of those roles in a different way. And we're finding that organizations have different challenges that they want to solve. And there's lots of different ways to solve those challenges. And that's part of what's leading to all of these different point solutions being introduced to the marketplace. And guess what? Sales ops often has the role of evaluating technology that's going to fit in with CRM. And so how do they keep up with that? That's the kind of issues that we're really referring to on the point solutions there. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Dharmesh?
I think you answered it. What we've seen is there's a lot of with increased data and increased complexities, there are point solutions, and so what we've seen is there is this element of being a technology evaluator, keeping in touch with a landscape that's changing very fast on the tech side for those solutions, and then even playing a system integrator at some point as you start working through integrating all these point solutions into a cohesive end-to-end solution that works for your organization.
Yeah, it's almost like taking on an IT role.
Yeah, it is. For a lot of places, it is the shadow IT, right? A lot of times, sales operations, when I look back, even at Salesforce, we had our sales operations team within our org simply because IT could not keep up with our requests. And, we would, whenever we went to IT, it would go into a backlog of Scrum team activities. And so we thought that we could regain some agility by just keeping stuff within our own domain.
Yeah, but that in of itself requires a lot of specialization because a sales ops person can't, how much time do they have in a day? So if they're going to have to know about all the different technologies and do all of these other things, perhaps it's better to start to specialize and have different roles within sales ops.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the next question is, I've heard you talk about one ops, and I want to get into that a little bit more because I think it's an interesting concept for people to start talking about. And just a little background, because I do the sales technology landscape and there's also a marketing technology landscape, people often ask, well, should there just be one? Right? You've got marketing and sales, and if they're really aligned and working together, should it be Rev Tech or something like that? And I think that's kind of what you're talking about here when you're talking about one ops. Speak to that a little bit and what it means in terms of alignment and other elements.
So my view here is that if you take away the lens from your own company's organization chart and really focus on the customer whom you're trying to serve, the customer or the account does not care whether I'm talking to marketing or sales or customer success. They care about I'm talking to a company X, right? We do that in our personal experiences. We might buy stuff from Amazon, but if something doesn't really work, I'll call Amazon and expect them to know my state, right? And I don't care whether I'm calling the 1-800 number over there for delivery issues. But I'm expecting them to know my state. And that is a lens most customers have, right? They want to interact in the context of their current state with the organization, right? Am I a customer? Are you prospecting me? I might be a customer that's looking for something new. And so we believe that the operational stack has to get unified as well to be able to sort of really respond to the customer in the context of their journey.
Is that what, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is that what you mean here by planning versus execution? Would sales be more on the execution side?
No, so we look at that as planning and execution as two pieces that are aligned. Planning, you're doing against a go-to-market plan. Execution, you're doing against a go-to-market plan. And the go-to-market plan is the anchor tenant that unifies marketing and sales and customer success. Because essentially you have a go-to-market plan against which your entire organization is working, right? So what you want to do is when you're planning how you're going to engage from an ops perspective, you are working against the go-to-market plan. And the entire ops function, marketing, sales, and customer success from an execution lens has also got to align around that go-to-market plan, right? So that is what we mean by tying both planning and execution against a go-to-market plan. Once you can do, and execution includes all those different roles, then you really are truly talking about one ops. Today, most places what happens is marketing ops runs its own instance. They have their own tech stack, but they generally have their own bunch of Excel spreadsheets and things that they're calling out as customer states, right? Which is very different from customer state if I were to go into Salesforce, which is what sales teams are using. And if I were to look at the same customer in, say, Gainsight, which is what the customer teams are using, I will find 3 different states of the same customer, right? And it is very, very hard for people to keep in track and saying, what is the true state of this customer? And the only way you align that is if you have everybody working off a common go-to-market plan and they have the shared view, and for that, you need one ops.
Explain more about go-to-market. What does that mean? Does that really just mean everything that has to do with figuring out who you're going to sell to and how you're going to do it, and market as well?
So go-to-market, there are 2 levels of, as you think of the company's evolution. First, you're finding a product market fit, right? And once you've found that, your Series A, beyond, you're now, next thing you're finding is product go-to-market fit, not just product market fit, right? And in that, what you're doing is you're looking at saying, what is my optimal segmentation model? What is my optimal coverage model, right? What is, how am I assigning quotas, right? And tracking quota? How am I defining comp plans that actually make sense? So all those things are tied to the go-to-market, but you're all doing it from a context of either customers, you're carving out customers into segments and assigning people to cover those segments, by roles. It could be marketing, it could be sales, it could be customer success. All those people are tied to the go-to-market plan. You could be aligning teams around your customer base, or you could, if you have multiple products, you have a different go-to-market plan for each product, and so you could have different salespeople selling different products, and they all have to be coordinated together.
Mm-hmm. So is that what sales ops is really doing? Basically, all the go-to-market planning? Should it be called some sort of go-to-market operations, or are they doing more than that go-to-market planning and execution?
It depends on the organization. Like I said, today it's because the field is still evolving. It depends, right? So if you're a small company, generally it's the head of sales and who's building some sort of a go-to-market plan, and really asking the ops function at this point. And there's the ops function. Those companies, under 15 to 20 reps, is still SFDC admin plus whatever I can throw at them. So they're just the execution side of the house. But as you start scaling, the more you hit more than 20 or 30 reps, people become a lot more sensitive around accounts moves and territory moves and all those things. And so what we've seen is someone actually wearing a quasi-sales strategy hat. And then as the company becomes bigger, you have dedicated teams for sales strategy and the sales operations. The operations guys are focused more on the execution side of the house because sales is a daily business, right? So no matter what you do, what you have in the plan, people are always moving. New reps are coming, reps are leaving, accounts need to be reassigned. Probably your routing queues need to be updated. All that day-to-day stuff is managed by the ops team. And then you have a dedicated team for sales strategy that's actually focused more on building the go-to-market plan. And our view is that those two teams are part of sales operations as a group, as a discipline, but they function with those titles of sales strategy and sales ops, and they need to be working against. They should be working together, but it's just a function of scale within companies. You have more complicated go-to-market plans, which requires better role specialization. So you're bringing in more people into the mix.
In terms of, just one last comment on that, in terms of what does that mean next for sales ops, what I hear you saying is that we'll probably go from a go-to-market plan or any sort of planning that you might be doing, territory, segmentation, all of that, going from that being a once every year or once every 6 months to an ongoing living, breathing type of plan and adjustment on execution.
Yeah, so I think there are two things that I have in mind when I think about this. One is sales operations roles will change, right? When I started even 10 years ago building cloud services, I remember a time when we used to hire network engineers and email engineers, right? And they were focused on keeping the email system up or my network system up. Today, nobody buys that. There are, we just all use Gmail and we run stuff on the cloud because we've automated a lot of those things. So from a role perspective, the execution side, there'll be a lot of automation that will happen, and we see that as point solutions evolve. They become platforms where a lot of the day-to-day ops stuff that's still being done manually will get automated. It's a matter of time. So the sales ops resources have to move up the stack towards more of sales strategy, right? And yes, on the strategy side, we need more sales operations professionals thinking about the go-to-market strategy, because that is how companies, as you move from the commodity to capability to a strategic asset lens, that journey gets mapped through the transition.
Mm-hmm. Which really tells us that things like spreadsheets and maybe the way we were all as an organization trying to manage everything is not only just not enough anymore, but why would you when there's automation that can help you do it? And if you're not starting to thinking about automation, then you will get left behind eventually because everyone else will be doing automation. And so now it really leads us into the technology piece of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's an evolution that's happening. Today, sales operations people don't have their own platform. They have a lot of point solutions, but they don't have their own platform. Sales people do. It's called Salesforce and CRM systems or Dynamics. But sales operations people do not have their own platform. They are essentially still dealing with Excel spreadsheets and point solutions, right? And so the question we should be asking is it about time that sales ops has their own platform, which is reflective of the changing nature as a strategic asset, which means it's a platform that can help me think about sales strategy and in the tying plan to execution by automation versus dealing with Excel spreadsheets or making do with whatever sales people need, which is CRM.
Yeah. Well, Tom has a question, so I just want to interject that right now. He says the big trend right now in all business is consolidating marketing, sales, and customer experience operations under a new umbrella called revenue ops. Could you comment on this trend and potential impact? Thanks for your question, Tom. That's a good one.
Yes, so Tom, this is totally in line with how we see it. I prefer to call it growth ops, and I will slight nuance in that one. At the end of the day, the business is about not just generating revenue, but it's about profitability, right? Are you growing?
Good point.
You can still make revenue and not grow, right? And that's why we call it growth ops. But yes, alignment across those organizations is super important, which is why we think of it as one ops. We see the term revenue, and that scares me a little bit, simply because revenue by definition does not guarantee profitability, right? And so we think if you're a growing company and you want to grow, we call it just growth ops. But yes, it's actually a good trend because that is it aligns with what we were talking about earlier. At the end of the day, you want to engage with the customer in the context of their journey, and you don't want to give your org chart experience to your customers.
Mm-hmm. And so are you seeing that more and more where companies, probably larger companies, because they've got, a bigger operation to manage, are consolidating under a new title called revenue ops?
I haven't seen the consolidation. I have seen the title being used, and the title is being used by sales operations people as revenue operations. But I haven't seen all consolidations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen that yet myself, but as Tom said, it's a trend, and so that means it's something that's starting to develop, and we're heading toward. And I would agree with that.
Yes, I see that as a trend more from our naming perspective, titles, but I haven't seen change on the ground yet. And I'm hoping that it'll take a while.
Do you think if sales ops people and their titles were changed to growth ops, that would give more recognition to the critical aspect to their role in an organization and maybe help elevate it as a profession?
Yes, I think that's where it started from, is because initially when you look at sales ops, right, sales was viewed as a commodity. It was viewed, and sales, if you were a VP of sales and you had finite dollars and you had to invest, where are you investing? Are you investing in hiring a new sales guy to sell more, or are you investing more in a back office? Right? That was the lens that people had. Okay, so every dollar I'd rather go hire a sales quota-carrying resource versus hiring someone on the back end, because I view the back end guy as cost.
Yeah.
And so as the role, as the lead, some of the leaders, thought leaders in that space started saying, hey, we want to not talk about cost, but we want to talk about how we can help you get more revenue. We can actually help you win bigger deals. So that's where the revenue lens came in, right? And it is an evolution which shows up in the title to say, having the title at least gives us an indication, at least for me, this is a company that is viewing sales operation as a revenue generating asset versus a cost center.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think that just like marketing is now starting to have a responsibility for revenue attribution, that sales ops or growth ops will also have that, or maybe they have that already?
They should, so the hard thing is how do you quantify? We have put together a framework called a growth ops framework, which we think as a way where sales operations people can actually quantify the impact. But it goes back to having data, right? Do we have clear line of sight into our best customer segments? Are we winning bigger deals? Is the deal velocity increasing? All those things can be correlated back to ops function, because if you have the data, then you can act on it, right? So to answer your question in a short statement, are they carrying revenue targets on there? Not yet, but they can and should. I think there's this growing momentum where they feel that we need a structure to report on our impact, right? It is not about activity; it's about impact.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go on to the next topic. So,
So,
yeah,
you, Nancy.
I think I'll take this one. uh, so it is interesting. I think one of the things is that we think that CRM should be able to do everything that we want it to do, and that maybe we're just not using it in the right way, and that's often not the case. We actually do need more functionality than what CRM has out of the gate for things like managing go-to-market and other functions within sales ops. And as I mentioned before, that means there's a lot of point solutions, or what we call shiny, that lead to the shiny object syndrome. It's really hard to stay focused because you learn about a tool or new technology and you think, gosh, that would really be helpful. And so you want to go down that path rather than pulling back and saying, hang on now, maybe we should look at our overall objectives and see where this fits. So that's always our recommendation. But I just wanted to point out a few other things. I refer to this as the paradox of choice. That's also the name of a book. That's a great book for people that like to reading about this kind of stuff. But we think of a lot of choice as being better than not so much choice, right? The more choice, the better. But often that just paralyzes us, not only us, but also our customers. So there's some ramification there too in terms of product marketing and development. But what needs to happen is we need to find an easier way for sales ops and anyone who's looking at technology to think through all the choices that they have that are available to them. And basically, I think it just means that you need to have some sort of a strategic approach or a plan. Who are the different stakeholders that need to be involved, and what is the technology we already have today, and what can be leveraged, and what needs to just go away because we're really not getting any value out of it, or we're not realizing the value we thought we were going to get. What are the capabilities that we're looking to have and that we need, and we don't have those mastered? What's going to really help us move the needle in terms of our go-to-market plan? But the problem is that there's really no one in charge of that. Now, I know sales ops often is the one that is pointed to for sales technology, but often that gets back to that shiny object syndrome. Hey, we want to find a tool to do X, Y, Z. What's out there? Or how can you help us make CRM work better so that we can accomplish this one thing? But that's different from saying who's going to take responsibility and be held accountable and organize and get all the right people in place to really think through not only your go-to-market, but your technologies that are going to help you with that go-to-market. So it's kind of like a go-to-market for your own internal sales technologies.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. So like my view here is sales operations people are spending a lot of time evaluating tools and technology, but they're evaluating tools and technologies on behalf of salespeople.
That's right, yeah.
Right? They are not evaluating technology that'll help them do their job better. And one of the things I think I said this earlier in the call, salespeople have a solution. They need a solution that helps them with all the tactical work of maintaining accounts, moving opportunities, pipeline, getting better contact data, recording calls, all those on CRM, Chorus, all the tools are there. But sales leaders and sales strategy and sales operations people aspiring to move into sales strategy roles, they have a different set of requirements, right? They need data on territories and product and capacity, and they want to do really change account hierarchies and industry taxonomy, because really what's happening on the sales is whatever you're selling in go-to-market motion today will be different 6 months from now and a different a year later, and they don't have a system for that today, right? And so they need that platform, and they need to balance the time between evaluating a tool for salespeople, but also if they want to view their role as strategic, they have to spend some time evaluating tools that will make them able to do their jobs better. Well,
this leads me to the next question, and that is, what is the typical maturity level of an organization in terms of their sales ops being able to optimize what they do, the entire process of what they do?
Yeah, so we've seen it from a different stages, and this is a very debatable question because it's shades of gray. We kind of view that sales operations function all the way. We'd say, is it chaotic, or defined, and the goal is to be an agile organization, because if sales is dynamic, which means the reality is, as a company will evolve, your go-to-market will evolve, right? Today you were selling to enterprise, the customer that you're selling to, you thought was enterprise. Tomorrow, that could, as you scale up, they could become your mid-market. You could have people move around. You will create new territories. So what's really what do you want is agility. What in my discussion, at least, most of our customers say we are in the red box. We have some defined system, which means you've got basic CRM, we got some firmographic data, we've got a lead qualification process, we can track lead sources, and we've got data. We got all these information from Zoom Info and Discover.org and all the places. Where they all struggle, at least the large majority, is moving from a defined to an optimized state, right? And this is, again, to be fair, this is our lens on how we think about organizations and the maturity. But in all our discussion we've had with our prospects and people, we ask them to say, where do you think your organization fits around? They will all, 98% of them would say we are in the defined state. They all have a desire to get to agile, but it is, I like climbing, so I'll use that example as climbing. When you're climbing, you plot your route before you go up, right? Because after that, your face is so close to the wall, you actually have no idea. And so if you don't have the path, you can very well be on a ledge that takes you nowhere. And that's when they start showing expressions with the frustration of the Salesforce instance, right? Because they've not put that roadmap together. And it's a journey that has to be built. It has to be thought out. And I'm pretty sure there are lots of folks on this call who've done a pretty good job. But this is our lens of how we should think about the maturity of your organization, keeping in mind that whatever you're building today, you will need to go and redo it because your sales go-to-market will change.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a fair maturity model. I mean, I think most of us get to the point where things are good enough, and then we just make do. I'm going to do something that we hadn't talked about, and we don't have a poll, but I think it'd be great if people want to put into the Q&A. Where do you see yourselves? I wouldn't think anyone here is in chaotic, but feel free to put that if you are, that's okay. But defined or optimized. And if you're on the agile side, that's okay too. So go ahead and put that in. It'll be interesting to see. And while you're doing that, what do you think about this notion, though, of getting to the point where things are just good enough and just dealing with that? And how do we get past that? And maybe that gets...
It goes back, yeah. So like our... when we were at Salesforce, right, we had a 15-year-old instance of Salesforce we were working on when I was there. And we were thinking about starting all over again. That was our charter before I decided to go and start doing fullcast. So good enough is not good enough, really, especially in today's market. When in the early 2000s, and I'll date myself, there were people out there when we used to get our VC money, $500,000 of that would first go to buying Sun servers. And then the next $500,000 will go to buying routers from Cisco. Today, the cost of starting a company is really, really low. So you have a lot more competition in the market. So whatever you think is good enough today, your shelf life is really small. And so you got to move continuously. You got to move fast. And if you got to do that, you need to have an agile place. There is no other way of saying this, right? You good enough will die.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got we've got mostly defined. People are replying that they're most of the replies are in the defined. We have a smattering of optimized, and and I think that's what we're seeing as well, that people are mostly in the define, everyone's working toward optimized. We all want to get to optimized and eventually to agile. I mean, right now, getting to optimized would put you in a very, as you mentioned earlier, Dharmesh, competitive position.
Very
So
competitive.
it could be a competitive differentiator at this point. Eventually, everyone or most of your competitors will be at optimized, and then you won't have that margin.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I will not taking any names, but one of our customers, they're a public company actually. 75% of their accounts in the enterprise segment had no contact information. So guess where the marketing budget was going? They were spamming people with marketing messages, and half of those people were not even part of the accounts that they were trying to get into.
That's so common, and I even see it on the buyer side. I get emails all the time from companies with products that I would never buy. They just don't apply to me. So that's a big amount of wasted effort. And I think, yeah. So how can sales ops help with that, from just being able, because if they had a more sophisticated go-to-market strategy that they were able to execute on better, would that help to eliminate it?
So I think the big part over here is getting involved in the discussion, right? And I think sales operation owes it to themselves and it owes it to their stakeholders that this is an education piece that I've seen that needs to be done, is to say, yes, I'll fix that latest routing rule requirement that you've had. I will add this new stage that you want, but that is not what we should be spending most of our time. I want to understand what your end goal is. What's our end goal? What is our go-to-market today? What is our go-to-market 12 to 18 months from now? Because really, what sales operations people are not sure how many of us actively think about this is, your boards are asking this question to your leaders every quarter. Can you go faster? Show me your plan. If I gave you 3 more heads or 10 more heads or whatever the number is, what would your plan look like, right? And that is their go-to-market model, is what they're asking for. And having that lens, because the go-to-market is your what I can desired end state. So you start at the end in mind. Say, if that is the goal, then let's go back and start looking at what needs to be in CRM. How should we set out a CRM? But because we don't think from the end state, we are solving for the problem here and now. You're always solving. It's like this whack-a-mole thing to play.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Well, I know the next slide is going to be about the question of addressing the operational maturity curve, how Fullcast does that. If we could just stay on that last slide, because I think that might help you, Dharmesh, talk about that. So, right now, you've talked about how there's no platform for it. Well, that's what Fullcast does. That's why there's a gap in the market that you're filling, is to help there be a platform for reaching operational maturity. So how does it help with getting from defined to optimized, or optimized to agile?
So yeah, I mean, I'll kind of beating a dead horse in this one, but I'll start again, because this has to be, we have to sort of really understand this. As sales operations leaders need to internalize this inside us. Products don't sell. You need salespeople to actually sell. And then once you have salespeople, the second realization we need to internalize is, the best product alone does not make companies winners, right?
That's right.
What really differentiates a good company is execution. It is the go-to-market execution. Before Uber and Lyft, there was a company, it starts with the name S, that was actually doing it. Nobody remembers the name, including me. I just said it's something that starts with S. Uber was not first to the market. Lyft came a little bit before Uber. But Uber was an execution machine, right? What they could do was really put their go-to-market strategy and orchestrate all the resources across marketing, sales, and customer success of maximum ROI. That's what they did, right? And so successful sales operations teams are replacing their annual planning cycles with almost like a quarterly lens of saying, Every 3 months, I'm going to evaluate where would we be next 12 to 18 months, right? They are able to go and ask their leadership and say, we can be at this stage, and this is what I need. I need from a capacity perspective, and this is how we will allocate our resources. They internalize that sales is dynamic. They internalize that sales organization is constantly evolving with new resources. Some people are leaving, some people are joining, and they realize that the annual exercise does not really cut it, right? If you have data, I would fix things now. Why wait for a whole year to go ahead and that? The speed of execution is going to make them win.
Mm-hmm.
So as we think of that, we think about sales strategy folks really focused on 3 buckets, which is designing a go-to-market plan, building a rhythm of the business, which talks to how we are doing against plan, tracking plan drift, how far we are off, and then the last part is really operationalizing the day-to-day sales execution motion, right? And that is where I think a lot of automation can actually help across all those 3 things, which is what we at Fullcast, that was my passion when I left. We had a spreadsheet of 1,500 spreadsheets across 400 managers at Salesforce, and we were like, this is not scalable, right? No wonder our planning cycle takes 6 months. And by the time we were done with planning, guess what? Half the guys have already taken the bonus check and gone. So my plan is off day 1. The next quarter, I'm going ahead and adjusting accounts, moving accounts, dealing with exceptions. And before I knew it, my next planning cycle was back on my head. And we felt that doing this exercise in Excel, pulling data from multiple sources, this is not a non-scalable as we're a growing company. And so that's when we went out and decided to create Fullcast as a platform, primarily for sales ops and sales strategy guys.
Interesting. Yeah, it's no wonder that people do it, all the big planning once a year, because it's just too difficult and time consuming to do it any more often than that. And then when it comes to, well, how are we executing against those plans? I mean, what do you go back to the spreadsheets? I mean, it's obvious.
It's 2019. We're still dealing with spreadsheets.
Exactly.
Everything
Yeah.
has gone ahead of us. They've got a CRM. They've got fancy tools. But sales ops are still dealing with spreadsheets.
Right. Yeah. Not right. It's not right. Okay. So we're looking at this planning to execution. I thought it would be good to throw that slide up while you were talking about, talking about that last question. Do you want to say anything about these policies and how that works? Or I've got a couple other questions too from folks I can ask.
Yeah, I would love to have questions on what people think about these policies. We think of policies as the best sales ops teams are teams that run in the background. They run in the background and they're keeping a very smooth machine going, and they can make smooth machines work because they have defined and enforced policies.
And so we're talking about automation and really.
Correct. What we may or may not realize, sales ops people are defining policies all the time, but they either hard code a policy in Salesforce as a validation rule, or they will write it in a playbook. And in both cases, what happens is very hard to keep those policies alive, because your go-to-market has changed. Each time your go-to-market change, now you have to go ahead and update the routing rule, which is put as a policy of who gets what accounts, or you got to make changes in your sales playbook. And what you really need is agility, which means policy should be predefined. They should be easy to configure, so which means if my go-to-market changes, I should be able to reconfigure the policy, so I don't have to write code. And the policies are working in context of the go-to-market design, so it's not like they're kind of working in ad hoc. In the design is where you define the policies. Okay, you will say, what's my quota? What's the target? Who gets what accounts? What are my rules for handling that account? Stay in the lane. Right? If I'm selling enterprise sales cycles, I'm going to move accounts across segments. Well, I have some holdover policies, which means the previous owner who was running an opportunity will still have 120 days. I'm making that number up because that's my sales cycle to own that account. Those are all policies that sales operations people are defining, and those that need to get enforced automatically. Whether in Salesforce or any other CRM system that you have, right? And that agility and that link is what is required through software.
Makes sense. All right, I'm going to ask Randall's question. This is a tough one, Randall. I mean, this would be a good discussion. Where would marketing ROI, parentheses, across various segments and different types of marketing throughout the pipeline, close parentheses, responsibility sit? So where would marketing ROI responsibility sit within an organization, and how does sales ops support ROI initiatives? Randall, I'm guessing you have some ideas on that, so if you want to type that in as well, that'd be good. But where should the responsibility sit in your mind, Dharmesh?
So this goes to how do we track campaigns, activities that marketing generates, right? There are two set of marketing activities. One is what I call the vanity metrics, which is I had so many website visitors, I had so many leads that signed up or downloaded a paper. But for me, those I consider them as vanity metrics. They're leading indicators, yes, but they are not really showing ROI. ROI to me means I should be able to track CAC to LTV by accounts, right? Which means I can track a lead that came in from marketing, and the marketing has to have a pipeline target on them. So I can see conversion rates. I can see which campaigns have generated a largest number of deals, plus also sales cycles and deal sizes. So I can say which is marketing to me is a channel, right? So is my channel working among all other channels? If I can have that attribution, not just from a lead source, but attribution that I can tie it to, say, how fast the deal went through the pipeline, how big the deals were, average deal sizes by leads generated from marketing activities. That's when I start having an ROI lens on marketing, right? And that's why the customer acquisition cost, which includes the cost of sales and marketing against the lens of LTV, is super important metric for us to track. And then it leads to the other part of Randall's question, which is how does sales ops support that ROI? And sales ops has to become very metrics driven, right? We have a framework. I'm more than happy to actually share that with you. In fact, what Catherine has done is she's actually put together an ebook. And if folks are interested, we can actually share that ebook that talks about in a lot of depth on this topic.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking that everyone probably would want that ebook. Is it possible to send that out as a follow-up with the recording?
Yeah, absolutely. I can get that out to everyone if they're interested.
Okay, I think that'd be great. Thank you for your question, Randall. We have another question.
Question for Randall. Randall, did it make sense?
What's that?
I'm just asking Randall, did my response make sense? Because that's how I look at it. I'm a very, we track our marketing team the same way.
Yeah, well, type in your comment if you want, Randall, into the chat box. I have another question. Oh, here, he just did. He says, sits across both. Marketing needs to have discipline to manage their spend and categorize spend in line with how sales ops can track leads to conversions. Well said. Okay. All right, we have another question. This one is, they didn't put their name in, so it just says anonymous attendee. What types of roles should make up a sales ops team? We talked about that early on, some differentiated roles. You meant mostly kind of on the sales side, but also you're seeing that in the sales ops side.
Yes. So it depends. Roles are different from a title perspective. But what we see is, I'll talk about roles, but not necessarily titles. And that could be another thing that Catherine can share out, is that we had a slide on the career ladder where we spend some time. But where we think about it, it's from a tactical perspective, it is all the things around system configuration, right? CRM, rule writing, validation writing, all those things, which could lead into a system architecture kind of a role if you love that track. But essentially think of it as all system support work that needs to happen. You are the person who's managing CRM and the tool stack and focused on integration. Then there is a business support function, which is think about that as data management, business analysis, data insights, right? You're looking at the highest level data insights, which is considered strategic, which is propensity analysis, looking at renewals and churn, like we talked about the cost of payback time, or margin analysis, those kind of stuff, right? At the tactical level, it's all about data quality. And then the third bucket is all the things that sales management really cares about, which is more tied to sales support, like role designs. It's enablement falls into that bucket. They're defining process and policies. They're involved in planning, which is coverage model, territory planning, all the stuff around planning and forecasting. So think of them in three buckets: at a high level, system support, business support, and then sales management. My view is that system support and business support will continue to you'll see a lot more automation there. And so I think we should all be thinking about how do we get ourselves into more on the planning and strategy side of the house.
Mm-hmm. Well, the webinar is about what's next for sales ops. We hit on a lot of different topics. The need to automate, it's one of the last groups to really have some true automation that's meant for them. The need to think about it from a more strategic point of view. What are some of the other key takeaways you think?
The biggest thing and one thing, because my belief is we can all hold only one idea, is think about your go-to-market model and think about how what we are doing on a day-to-day basis is helping us execute against our company's go-to-market plan, right? We should do everything in our power to get into those meetings where people are having that discussion around go-to-market and strategies. And in order to do that, we'll have to let go of a few things, and we should figure out what are those things that are low value add that we should let go and focus on these higher value add articles, and so that we are viewed less as a commodity, but more as a capability transitioning towards a competitive differentiator.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. I believe in the golden nugget concept as well, and I think that's a good one. Think about it in terms of go-to-market. It's much more strategic. It involves everything. It's a one-ops approach. We are almost out of time here. So Catherine, should we wrap up, or do we want to see if anybody else has any more questions?
I think let's see if we have any last minute questions. Otherwise, this discussion has been so fantastic. Thank you both.
Well, it's a good topic. Yeah, there's a lot to dive into, and we appreciate everybody's questions and comments. And we just have a few more minutes left, so if we don't get to everyone's questions, I think there's a couple left. We'll just do that in the follow-up. Mm-hmm. But I'd say, Dharmesh, thank you for inviting me to the discussion. I always learn a lot when we bat things around.
Thank you for hosting and sharing your wisdom as well. The other question, and I'll put it to all the audience, and you can probably follow up with the email as well to Catherine, is as you think about go-to-market and as you think about your own option, where would you like to go, feel free to send content or topic ideas to Catherine, and we'll kind of make sure that we'll have either someone from our side or someone from the industry that we can actually bring in and talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Great.
Brett had a question. Do you see sales ops moving to sales ops as a service? Yes, I think all of us should think about as a service, and I talk about it less from a delivery model, but more as how we look at our roles, right? Are we investing it back? Yes, and from a delivery model as well at some point, right? A lot of the automations will move to sales ops as a service. It's happened across industries. Our belief is first the data center, then the network, and then we had apps, and now the back office is ready for as a service model.
Great. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for your questions. And Nancy, thank you so much for joining us. Your input is always so valuable. And yeah, it was great to hear your point of view, Dharmesh. I've included Dharmesh's email. If you do want to talk more strategically with him, feel free to reach out. But otherwise, you all have my email address. And if there's any resources I can send your way, or if you have ideas on a future webinar topic, I'd love to talk to you. And then you'll be getting a recording of this webinar in your inbox tomorrow, and you're welcome to share that with anyone that you'd like. And yeah, thanks so much for your time. We've really enjoyed talking to everyone, and we'll see you online again very soon.
And Catherine, sorry, just one last parting comment. If people want to get in touch with me, they can email me at Nancy@SmartSellingTools. And also feel free to send a LinkedIn invite and mention the webinar.
Great. Yeah, I'll include Nancy's email in our follow-up communication as well, so everyone has that written down. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you. Thanks. It was a lot of fun, and hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.